Into this podcast, it's Neil Pendleton and Pat Burns. I mean, these guys kill massive bucks. They're an encyclopedia of knowledge on it. This episode is just chock full of so many different strategies and awesome information. You guys can probably just put this on replay every Sunday and learn something new every single time. So we'll get into it. It's Neil Pendleton and Pat Burns.
All right, we're back with another episode of Hunt Suburbia, sitting with two of the best hunters in the Northeast, Neil Pendleton and Pat Burns. What's up, boys?
How's it going?
Hey.
What's going on? What are we going to talk about? We're in the off-season right now. You guys want to talk about what we're doing in the off-season and how much time we spend in the woods and that kind of stuff, or what?
Me and Neil literally bumped into each other in the woods like less than a week ago.
Yeah.
So it doesn't stop for us, man.
You didn't plan it?
Well, I mean, kind of not. I knew he was going to be in the general area, so we found each other in the woods. Like, all right, you're going to be over there. You're up on that ridge.
Gave daps and kept going.
Yeah, exactly.
What were you doing? Looking for sheds or what?
Yeah. Just exploring at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah.
I won't ever hunt that area, but I'll go in there and look for sheds. And then, that's one of the things that I think that we do sometimes. Those of us who don't quit and just do this year round, if I'm in a spot, just shed. Like I got a bunch of buddies that don't shed hunt; they just hunt, you know. So they'll tell me where their bucks are. They know I'm not going to go in there, but I'll go in there and find the sheds. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and they want to get their hands on the sheds.
They kind of they're like, hey, you're their shed dog, right?
Pretty much, yeah. And I keep them. And what I say is, if you kill the buck, I'll give you the sheds. You know, eventually.
Yeah.
But it's still exciting for me to find them. But
I mean, any experience that you can gain in the woods is a great experience.
That's
and
it.
That's where I know when I've listened to successful hunters talk, it's like the amount of time that you should spend to try to get good at any craft, right? I mean,
10,000 hours, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I've heard people say it's like they dedicate 3 days a week or more every week of every year. It's like to being in the woods or doing something hunting related. If it's shooting their bow, if it's reviewing trail cameras, cleaning up cards, it's like they got to put in tons of time to doing it. And when I heard that, I was like, I got to scout more. I just got to be in the woods more before it's it's like, I mean, I've never really done shed hunting like Pat. But it's like that's an excuse to be out there, and you're finding scrapes, you're finding rubs.
Yeah.
It's like...
You become the woods, man. That's what I do. It's like any moment I have that I can be in some woods, I'm in it. Whether it's an area
To be
I'm
honest,
hunting or
it's
not.
better than being on pavement.
Of course. I mean,
It's just like way better.
And that's the crazy part too, is I think especially in this day and age, even my kids, there's 95% of the population would rather be in their device. They'd rather be
Comfort
in
zone.
their phone on a couch,
Yeah.
watching somebody do the thing that they want to do. You know, like I mean, even this podcast there's some of us. Neil listens to this shit while he's walking through the woods.
I combine the two sometimes. Yeah, it's. I mean, you can't fully get into one of the other experiences, but now with the hunting videos, it's a lot of people. Would kind of, I don't want to say in some ways rather do it, but they would rather live vicariously through someone else.
We talk about it with the Big Woods Bucks guys all the time, especially them. They're at it's the pinnacle, right? If you got to go up to 1,000,000 acres of woods, and you're off the beaten path, and nobody can save you. Like how many people they have 12 to 15,000 people listening to their podcast every week. How many of them are actually going up the track? I would say it's 2 to 5% of them, right? The rest of them are just like, this sounds so awesome. They're listening to it like it's a fairy tale.
Yeah, I mean, it's like all the action films we watch and all that stuff. People robbing banks, like it's cool and exciting, but I'm not gonna do it, So it's the same thing with hunting. Some guys just might not be able to put in the work. Their schedules might not allow it, or their family situation.
And most people listening to this are not in the woods as much as you two guys. I'm not in the woods as much as you two guys, but I'm kind of getting to that point, and I recognize it as, it's a balance to life. The more I'm going to be getting into the woods, the less I'm going to be doing other stuff. So I realize that there's negative aspects to it too, and it's all about your lifestyle and how you're able to build
balance
it around.
It out. Yeah, it's addicting, and it's funny, man, because I talked to I have a close friend who had a real kind of drinking problem, and he was all messed up, and I kind of he loved hunting too, so I had talked to him a bunch, and I was like, man, instead of going out and drinking on the weekends, why don't you should buy a camera and just go in the woods, And this was over a year and a half ago. And this dude literally did it. He stopped drinking, and now every Friday when he gets paid, he goes and buys a camera. This dude's up to like 120 cameras at this point.
Wow.
And he's like loving life. You know what I mean? Like, it's it's nuts. It is addicting, and I think that
Well,
a lot
for
of
the
us.
price of a camera, it's like the price of a 30. I mean, it depends on what kind of camera you get, but
yeah, or I mean, a night
probably
at
the
the
same
bar.
amount
if
he was spending in booze, right?
Exactly, and instead he's he's healthier. He's feeling better about himself, and it's an addictive thing. But if you can channel it the right way, it's great.
Do you guys think that most hunters that reach a high level of hunting are have addictive personalities?
All the ones I met do.
Yeah, I would definitely
Right?
agree. Yeah.
Like even just like Brian Visco last week that I was talking to too. I mean, he's got he's a textbook addictive personality. He jumps from one thing, he gets super addicted to it, and then he gets burned out on it and goes to another one. I just think that there's something to that, right? So I think that hunting also can be a great outlet, like you said, Pat, for people who have bad addictions. Hunting isn't a bad addiction. If there's ever been a good addiction, it's hunting.
Well, you hear some stories. It can become that, right? It can ruin relationships. It
Yep.
can, ruin like your career. It
Yeah.
can get that way. But yeah, I mean, you can channel it in a positive way. And I mean, so that's where I know for me, it's like I've tried to focus more on hunting because I want to, really kind of get as good as I can with hunting. But even with fishing, it's like I think about during, the COVID shutdown. I was going fishing all the time because I had it in my goal that I wanted to catch a giant lake trout. I slept in my truck 20 times during, probably like a 2-month span, in a parking lot because you couldn't stay anywhere because I was on the mission to catch a 20-plus pound lake trout.
Did you see that lake trout that I posted on my Instagram there? My buddy Scotland got it up in Vermont, 15 and a half pounds. It wasn't super huge weight-wise, but it was 42 inches long.
That's a long trout for that weight.
The biologist thinks that it was 60 years old. And
Holy shit.
a lake trout that is 42 inches long should weigh 30 pounds.
Because the one that I got was 22 and a half pounds, and that was 36 and a half, 37, right?
That's
range.
that should be.
So what's that, like a 30-year-old fish?
Yeah, I mean.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 42-incher, the biologist is like, that's probably a 60-year-old fish. And it's crazy when you think, like, damn, that fish was born in 1960.
It's nuts. Sometimes, I mean, all respect to biology, but I've heard some examples in the deer world where they've been way off. Like, I have pictures of this deer that one of my buddies killed a few years ago, and when he brought it to the biologist was like, yeah, he's 2.5, and I'm like, the deer had like one spike on one side of its head and then, a full rack on the other side. And he was like that since, I had pictures of him when he was probably a year old, and he was like a 6-year-old, 7-year-old
But you knew
deer.
for a fact that he
It was
wasn't
like 6 or
yeah.
7, and they were like, he's
have
2.5.
you sent the teeth in from the deer that you've gotten?
Not yet. I got him though.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've sent in probably like a handful of teeth, and it's cool to get back. And there is some inconsistencies even with that you hear that like if it was an easy winter, the rings, just like rings in a tree, they won't be as defined.
And I think that method is more reliable than like the biologist at a check station being like, yeah, he's 2.5.
Yeah, but
They're
again,
just-
think
trying to
about
guess on
like
teeth
how many
there.
hours you guys have been in the woods versus the biologist.
Exactly. Yeah.
You dwarf them. You'd probably know way more about deer than they do, and you have more information on those deer. That's just that guy's job.
Yeah, and they're trying to guess from tooth wear.
I'm sure there's some great biologists out there, but also I think there's like hunters that know way more about a particular deer than those biologists.
And not only that, the deer in the area. Like what they carry for body sizes, rack sizes. It's like, because you've seen between trail cameras a ton of deer that are in that area.
And speaking since we're in the off season, that's something that I even do. Like, I notice characteristics about the specific buck, so that way I can recognize them when they do drop their antlers. Whether it's a tear in the left ear, or it has a patch under a certain area, or some weird mark on their leg or something like that.
Yeah, so
And
you'll
it's-
know in the picture. It's like, oh, that's not a doe. Even though like
that's
most of them are bigger bodied anyway. But.
Yeah.
So I guess when it comes to off season, it's like, I know I have like, certain kind of things that I do, but do both of you guys have like with strategies as far as like hanging stands, running cameras, like the scouting or shed hunting? Like what particular things like do you guys do?
I don't stop, man. I can't keep myself out of the woods. So as soon as the season's over, I'm taking advantage of every situation that I can to get in the woods, especially if there's snow, So if there's snow and I happen to get a picture of one of my target bucks, I'm spending, even during the season I've done this and probably wasted opportunities. I'll backtrack the deer rather than follow its tracks forward. I've done that with the electric buck probably 3 times, I could have probably maybe had the chance of catching up to it or bumping it to someone else or something. So instead I chose to literally go backwards on his track,
Oh, that's
mark
smart.
the bedding,
Yeah.
and just continuously do that. So I do that all throughout the season. Even now, we got fresh snow now. Like, I'm frothing at the bit, waiting to get out and kind of mark some new feeding areas to make sure I can capitalize on my shed season.
So do you target more like feeding areas for stand locations or bedding or scrapes? Or?
Bedding for stand locations, right on the edge on that travel route usually. Yeah, I haven't had too much luck in the feeding areas specifically. I try
to say that. Like, yeah. I've kind of been thinking, because I hear some people talk about targeting, like, feeding areas when it comes to acorns, and that's never been any part of my repertoire, really. I probably couldn't really identify.
So
sometimes.
you go for bedding too.
Bedding, yeah, and scraping area, transition areas, but for the most part.
But isn't there, so for somebody listening that, like, is brand new to hunting, it's going to be it's going to be hard for them to comprehend how you can, like, if you're setting up next to bedding, most of the time there is going to be some feed there too. So how do you, like, distinguish? You know what I'm saying?
So there's a big difference between buck bedding and doe bedding, right? And even younger buck bedding, it's like there's a huge difference when it comes to that type of bedding, because you look at mature bucks, which Pat and I target, and they are, other than during the rut, like, well, I guess in the summertime they may be with other bucks, when they're in bachelor groups, but I mean, the majority of the time we're trying to hone on them and target them. They're solo. They don't
want to be around anybody else.
And none of the other deer want to be around them because they'll mess them up.
Well, I think just the older ones. No, even the electric buck this year, I noticed he kind of changed his range, and the range that he was in last year, I got all of these really good 3-4 year old bucks hitting those cameras that he was consistently on last year, but he's not there. So I'm like, he really doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to deal with the fights. It's like an old guy doesn't want to go to the bar to get a piece of tail.
Yeah,
he's like, I'm not fighting anybody for this. And
yep.
Yeah, so it's funny, man, and it's funny too with the older bucks. I don't know if you've seen this, Neil, but I literally, one of the videos I showed you guys the other day of the big boy, he pisses in the scrape, and the next deer that comes through is a mature doe comes through the next day and is in that scrape.
Oh, there's my hunk.
And I've seen that multiple times with him where he's hit a scrape, and then all of a sudden the doe are like, all right, this is, they're seeking out their gold diggers.
They're like following him. Yeah,
it's
gold
funny.
diggers.
He doesn't have to do the work that the young ones do.
Well, that's so true, because you think of, historically, it's like, all right, like you see a doe and a buck's following. I can't think of really hardly any of the bucks that I've killed that has been with a doe. I mean, the biggest bucks, they're usually completely by themselves. They're not with those. They're not trailing them. I mean, there is a certain amount of time, but you're probably not going to find them during that time. So
why do you think? Do you think they're just like those really big ones?
They know when it's the time. Like, they know, like, that
they've been
small
through
window. They don't have to mess around.
Chasing and getting all tired.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I've heard somebody talk about the scenario of being at a bar, right? It's like all these younger guys are going to come up and hit on these chicks all night
buying
long.
drinks all night long.
And then finally at the end of the night, you got Mr. Suave just swoops in and says, hey, what do you got going on?
Matthew McConaughey sitting at the end of the bar just going,
takes the girl you've been buying drinks for all night and goes home with her. Yeah, that's what happens to these young bucks. They've been chasing the doe, getting her tired for 3 days.
Yeah, I've seen
bumps them right into the bedding area. The big boy, thanks, get out of here.
I mean, I've set up.
I'll handle this from here.
Over bedding areas, I've been there and I've seen that. Like, all of a sudden, you got these little bucks. They're coming in chasing. All of a sudden, it's just like, wait a minute. This buck put his tail between his legs and he's running off. And you look over, oh, there's the big guy just standing there back in the corners. He came out of the shadows and just says, "All right, boys, get out of here."
Yeah, let me show you how it's done.
Again, this year is like the first year that I've actually witnessed like some great rut activity. Again, I made leaps this year, and from like
That's
all
awesome.
the people that I've interviewed.
So exciting, man. Yeah.
It was really exciting, and I'm in the stand, and I'm texting with Kevin Polis. I don't know if you guys have met Kevin yet, but he was the first guest on the podcast, and I've since become pretty good friends. He's not too far, doesn't live too far from here, so we meet up all the time. And he's like, he told me, he's like, I'm seeing chasing in late October. And he's texting me. He's gone, wait until like November 15th. That week you're gonna start seeing the mature ones come out. And he kept saying that over and over. And then that week is when I did start seeing all the mature bucks just popped out. Because like you guys said, they're smart enough. They're not wasting their energy in early October. They know there's plenty of does to be bred, and they're all gonna come in. Most of them are gonna come into heat. The mid weeks of November. So.
Yeah, and when we deviate a little bit, Neil,
happen.
from the you were talking about mature buck bedding and young buck bedding and doe bedding and the difference. So
well, it's like I know it's like, I mean, growing up, you always hear, it's like, I heard from my dad, my grandfather, and other guys that were hunting. It's like big bucks go to the thickest, nastiest shit, right? It's like they're gonna be where nobody else is gonna go, and I've kind of found, they'll be there, but they're not in it. They're on the edges of it. Like,
Yep.
they want to be able to see open and have something at their back.
If they need to, they'll go in it. But
but they obviously have an escape route, but it's like usually at their back, like they're going to have some type of barrier. It could be the thickness. It could be water. It could be a house. It's like there's all these factors. It could be a cliff, right?
Yeah.
So they can one jump over it, but they know nothing's going to come from behind them.
Yeah.
They need that safety that on their back, like they're not going to have to worry about it.
But you would see a young buck sometimes in the open with nothing on their back because that's just experience, right?
Yeah, they haven't learned it yet.
Yeah.
They haven't figured it
that,
out.
and they think about this. They also don't have, say if there's 5 ideal bedding areas in a patch of woods, and there's
They ain't getting it.
7 big bucks, the young ones ain't getting it, and I'm sure Neil's seen this too. Like when you shoot the mature buck in an area, it's not long before another one all of a sudden just pops up in that area, I mean,
it's the territory. Like they had dominant territory. He gets killed.
the best
it's just
food,
like,
best bedding, best
again, it goes
goes.
back to the human analogy. They're not too far away, different than us. The king gets killed and a new king comes in. That's just the way it's always been in history, right?
Oh, it definitely is. And yeah, I mean, you'll even see that certain areas of woods, like if you found one good buck, there's probably going to be more that are there. I mean, there's a reason why that they're there, whether it's close to doe bedding during the rut. It's like if it's in the off season and there's a bachelor group there, well, there's going to be a good food source that's there with some safety, with whatever it is.
Yeah.
The conditions are right for the deer to be there.
I started getting pictures of this buck not too far from here that I had never seen, but I randomly was getting pictures of him, November 20th, something like that. And I called him Caesar. He had a huge 7-pointer. Looked like he was super old. And somebody hit me up and they're like, yeah, I've seen him over here. And it was 3 miles away. And he goes, there's a way bigger buck in here. And they hung out all summer together, and early fall they're hanging together. And he goes, rut came around, he kicked that fucking buck out of there. He must have kicked his ass, right? Got into a fight, and he just bounced 2 to 3 miles away from where he was all summer.
Yeah.
So he kicked him out. And now, if that bigger buck gets killed, he might go in there and take over that range.
Yeah.
And become the dominant buck there. He might go back.
Yeah. And this is something that I do always, man. It's just I question everything, and I'm sure you do the same thing, Neil. Like if I find something, I'm always asking why.
You got to ask why.
Like, all right, why is this scrape here? Why are all these rubs coming from this direction? Yeah. And once you start
Where was
putting all
he
those
going?
pieces together, and
Can you guys talk about that a little bit? I do find myself, and it's very easy on rubs and scrapes to find out which direction the buck was going when they made the rub and the scrape. With a rub, it's very easy. The side that the rub is on, he was coming from that way, and he's going away from it, right? With a scrape, it's like any of the kicked up dirt. You can tell if it's going, whatever way he's kicking behind, he was coming from that way, and he's going the other way. So, what do you guys? What do you take from that intel?
Well, I mean, I think we'd had a conversation about it just the other day. It's like I found a nice signpost rub on a brown ash, and it was obviously he was coming up a hill from what I'm theorizing is a bedding area because it's closer to a river's kind of swampy area. So at that standpoint, it's like he's probably leaving from there. And that's where he's headed up the hill. It's like going up on top of this ridge. So from that you can get direction and say, look, okay, well, what time of day was it? Where was he coming from? Why was he going there? It's like, so is he going, if he's going to the top, it's like this particular top, it's open hardwoods. So he's probably
Feeding
going to
up
feed.
there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, he's leaving the bedding.
Yeah.
And so he's leaving there, and then he's going up on top to
So
feed.
then you would surmise that during the day he's down low.
Yep.
At night he's up at top, and you can see from that scrape. Now you know where to set up for an evening hunt.
Yeah. So then it's like, okay, well, at that point he's coming up. He's going to come down off. They usually don't come. I mean, you can vouch for this, right? Do you ever get a picture of a buck, and then I don't know, like later on that day or the next day, comes back the opposite direction?
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, I never do either.
yeah, they do a circle, big loop.
Yeah, you never see a deer coming back through the opposite direction on the same camera, the same day or
So
same
true.
afternoon. It's like, so from that standpoint, they're making that loop. So it's like, all right, well, where's the other end of the loop? If they're going to go back down to that bedding area, which they probably aren't. They were just there. It's like, the day before. I mean, I've seen with bucks, it's like they'll hop around, 2 miles one day. I'll get a picture of him. If I'm really honed in on a buck and like, I know him, like I have him dialed in, and I'm getting consistent pictures, especially during daylight, it's close to the bedding. If you're getting daylight pictures of a mature buck during, October and hunting season outside of the rut, you got to be tight to that bedding somewhere. So at that point, it's like, okay, well, this bedding area is here. Sometimes I'll have pictures 2 miles away. That's a completely different bedding area.
Yeah.
So it's figuring out how they're looping between it, and you can read that sign as you were talking about. Sometimes, I mean, it's hard to put the pieces of the puzzle together, but you can start to kind of try to look at this stuff, and that's something that we were even talking about, like those rub directions. You can try to figure out, where they're coming from and where they're going, and then the opposite end of the loop.
But that's important for new hunters, what you said, where if you're getting daylight pictures of a buck, in October.
Outside of the rut, yeah.
Yeah. In October, that buck is very close to his bedding. So you have to just keep that in mind. If it's October, it's outside the rut, you got a daylight picture, your camera is close to their bedding. So what does that mean? Well, they bed all day long and they feed all night long. Now they'll get up, they'll bed during the night. They're not, it's not like they're constantly up. They bed down every 3, 4, 5 hours, take a nap. But they bed the majority of the day, especially those big bucks. They're not going to be up moving around, so keep that in mind.
What I find too is the closer you get to the bedding with rubs anyway, I've found bedding areas where you'll get in there and the rubs will be coming from all directions, kind of to like a nucleus, So the closer I get to a bedding area, sometimes I'll notice that there'll be rubs on both sides of the tree. So if you see that, there's a lot of coming and going from kind of that area.
It's very core bedding.
Yeah, you're close at that point to something that they're using a lot, or something that they have been losing a lot, or on different winds. I don't know how much you've seen of that, but
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I've seen it, but then I've also found consistent buck beds. There won't be any like rubs.
Oh, no sign. Yeah,
there'll be no sign at all. But when you start getting those, there's no rhyme or reason to it, and you're just like, all right, they're everywhere here. It's like, yeah, that's usually a sign. And then if you see some distinct, type bedding, around here we're not necessarily going to find beds with a hair in it and that type of distinct. But you're going to say it's like, hey, a deer was bedding here. It's a big bed. There's rubs in the area, and so you're close to where you want to be.
Yeah, and it was funny, we were talking about that signpost the other day. I put a camera this year on a beautiful signpost that I've seen for years, and put it on video, and I figured I'd get some awesome video of, giants ripping apart this signpost. And I got giants, they're walking by it. The one deer that's actually like hammering that signpost is like a spike. And I was talking to Neil the other day. I theorized, a large, why it's all ripped up is because of the younger buck. So a buck with a wider rack, you would assume it's easy for him to, release that scent from his forehead gland on there without screwing it up. Whereas the young buck, think he's got spikes. He's trying to. He's got an itch on his forehead, and all he's doing is digging the hell out of the tree with his spikes.
Yeah, because I know it's like you and I know, but for some people that might be listening, they might not know. But bucks have forehead glands that they're actually laying scent on that tree from their forehead. So, the reason why it's like they're working hard to get their forehead on there because they got shit in the way.
Bucks and does have lots of glands, and if you guys want to go learn all about that, I did a podcast with Chad Whitcomb. I forget the number, but go back and look. And Chad is an expert on glands and scent, so go listen to that. But yeah, they use all of their glands for communication tools. And then, like you said, like a lot of people listening might not even know that about the scents, but they might not even know what a signpost rub is. So you want to explain what a signpost is?
It's usually, in New England, like Neil was saying, it's usually on those ash trees, consistently. I found them on pine trees. I found them on oak trees. I found them on birch trees. Well, beech trees, but I think consistently it's more the ash tree in like Maine, right?
Yeah, that's in Maine. You get a lot more of the brown ash. They grow, around kind of like, mountain runoffs or, little trickle streams. You're going to see brown ash. And I didn't really even know what a brown ash was until probably a couple years ago.
Well, Hal Blood coined the term in, signpost rub, and he talks about it. So it's all homage back to Hal.
Yeah, oh yeah. That's where I heard it from. And
yeah.
So from that, the tree though, a brown ash isn't very common. Down in really isn't. I haven't found many at all in southern New Hampshire. Central New Hampshire and north, you start to get some. In Massachusetts, I've found a handful. In Massachusetts, usually I find
Like swampy
signpost
areas,
rubs. Yeah, you'll find it's around water that you'll find the brown
Yeah.
ash. Hemlock trees. I found some like on either like pines or spruces. You'll see just these giant trees. So like when you're talking a signpost, it's going to look like somebody took a bite out of a tree.
Like a telephone pole, yeah.
Yeah, and so again, it could be a telephone. I mean, you hope it's a telephone pole.
Yeah.
But you'll sometimes find even signposts on a tree that's not very huge diameter, but it's going to look like there's almost like a bite taken out of it or a chunk because over the years of that
It's the scarring.
Yeah, it's like there's like almost like that indent in
It looks
the tree.
like it looks like a vagina.
Yeah. And then when it gets really old,
Yeah.
Right, it's like a long slit in the tree.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're being
it
honest.
is. Yeah, there's an opening there. The bark's gone.
I used to walk by those so many freaking times in Vermont and just like never even registered that that was just an old rub. That
because
a buck rubbed that 4 or 5 years ago, but it wasn't. I wasn't
you see
seeing
rubs
new
like
rubs
the
on
size
it.
of a beer can around,
Yeah.
and it's like you can see the bark. It's like visual, like it's gone, like
yeah.
it's messed up, it's fresh.
Yeah.
With those signposts, like sometimes you won't see a ton of bark missing. You're just gonna see like little fresh scuff marks.
Like this is a small one, but that's the one that I found yesterday. But that's a small signpost,
Yep.
and it's not a brown ash, but it's you can see that it was scarred up probably 3 or 4 years ago. A buck rubbed it, and you can see the fresh rubbing on the top that this year happened. So it might not be the typical signpost, the best looking signpost, but you know that a buck has hit that in multiple years, and you know that.
I mean, because
that means that it's
kind of rehealed over it, so you're going to get
Right.
that, like, you're going to see the outer bark, you're going to see kind of like an inner bark, and then you're going to see almost to the center of the tree where it's tried to kind of heal around, but it can't. And so you'll see just little nick marks around. You may find some shavings at the base of the tree, but for the most part, all they're really trying to do is just rub their head on that tree. They're not trying to scuff it up.
Mother's Day is coming up in a few weeks, and we probably won't have any new episodes from now through Mother's Day. So I just wanted to say, tell your moms you love them, get them a gift, spend some time with them, and if you want to get them some Heron Hill, that'll help support the podcast. It's a great gift for your moms. Heron Hill will deliver wine for free to your door. So if you order now, you'll give yourself plenty of time to get that and give it to your moms on Mother's Day. So go to heronhill.com. If it's your first time, use code HS5. That'll let them know that you're coming from Hunt Suburbia, and that helps support me and obviously help support Heron Hill, which is a sponsor. It's going to keep them happy, and most of all, it's going to keep your mom happy. Get in there. If you are a first-time buyer, use code HS5. If you are a repeat buyer, that code won't work again, but will automatically be credited with referring you guys over to them as long as you use code HS5 on that first time. So thank you very much for the support, and happy Mother's Day to everybody.
A lot of the rubs that people find, they're from trying to take off velvet. They're trying to, so they're going to town on that thing. But on a signpost, they're more or less just trying to get the scent laid down.
It's a scent marker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's
a little. Yep.
So we're watching the video right now. It's like of a buck coming up and hitting a signpost, and you're gonna see it's like they're just trying to put their forehead and really rub it in there hard and aggressively to get that scent just laid in the
Their
tree.
noses are just incredible, dude. People don't understand. I mean, their noses are insane.
It's nuts.
300,000 times better than ours, or something like that. Don't quote me on it, but it's something insane like that.
I heard a cool analogy. I don't know if it was on a podcast or something recently. It might have been one of yours, but someone was saying that when we walk in a house and someone's cooking, you just smell.
One
Oh,
thing.
yes, pasta's cooking.
Yeah.
They literally are like, there's black pepper in there. There's a 3-week-old tomato, a 2-week-old tomato. There's also a pepper. And they have the ability to separate all that.
Kind of like a dog.
Well, so that's where when people have talked about cover scents, it's like when you look at the science of it, you kind of have to laugh.
yeah,
It's like if you walk in a bathroom after somebody took a shit and they smelled potpourri, you smell potpourri and you smell shit. It's like you can distinguish the two. So cover scent, whether it's pine, earth, you're going to smell that and you're going to smell human. So the way I look at it is that you're going to potentially draw more attention to human scent by trying to overpower it and mask it with something else.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's just something that I've noticed there.
No, I totally agree with that.
Wind is the most important thing, right?
I mean,
You
wind
just-
is a huge factor, to that, because you want to avoid, the deer from smelling you. You want to try to do that, at all cost.
And that comes from learning the area you're hunting and understanding the travel that, if you're targeting a specific deer, which way they're coming from, where's the bedding, and just stacking the deck in your favor to make sure that your scent isn't going to be drifting to where you think he could potentially be, or where he might come through.
Yeah, I mean, because you can start to overthink this because there is so much that goes into it. I mean, first, obviously, you have to put yourself where the deer is going to be, and then you need to start thinking and playing through that scenario. Whether it's wind, whether it's thermals. Like, I'll use milkweed oftentimes.
Yeah.
Because when you go up a tree, I mean, you can be 5 feet up, your scent's doing one thing. You go 5 feet lower, it's doing something completely opposite.
Yeah, I had 2 experiences this year that were like that. One, one of the days I'm hunting the electric buck, I sneak into this area close, tight to his bedding, and I know he's in there because I got a picture of him going to bed that morning. So I know he's in there. I'm creeping in there. It's quiet. The wind is a northwest wind, and it's literally, I'm probably 30 yards off a trail, My wind is blowing directly towards the trail over some thick stuff. There's no way it's getting to where he is. He's ahead of me, And I'm expecting him to come down. All of a sudden, maybe after sitting there about an hour, I start hearing upwind of me, like 70 yards, a deer blowing, And I'm like, how in the hell? There's no way it can smell me. But that doesn't... You don't know what your wind's doing once it goes behind you. It might be hitting a ridge and spinning back around. And I saw that, a few months before. I went into this other area, and I'm sitting there, and it's a super windy day. And I'm at the bottom of this swamp where this big oak ridge comes down, and the wind's blowing, right? And I'm looking up directly above me, and I'm seeing that the wind is blowing all the leaves over this way above me, They're
behind you.
They're blowing the leaves behind me. But down at the level where I'm at, all the leaves were going
the other way.
back towards the hill. So it was literally like
Thermals, too, are a big thing, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, with that, you have certain times a day, like, obviously the scent will rise and then it drops opposite times. But even sunlight, water, there's a lot of factors
that come in,
that can deal and play with that.
Yeah.
So that's why I encourage, it's like, to have, milkweed, shady areas. I mean, there's all these things. So if you drop the milkweed, it's going to float through the air. So you can really kind of see where that scent is potentially going to carry and what it'll do. Because I've had spots where you literally let it go, the prevailing wind, let's say is going from your left to your right. Okay, you let it go, it starts blowing to your right, and all of a sudden it just hooks and goes straight away from you.
Yeah, and that also comes back to spending time in the woods. So what I'll do, and I'm sure you do the same thing, is if I'm in an area that I know that I'm going to hunt, and it happens to be a certain wind, I'm always taking notes of that. Like when I'm standing in a certain spot or a scrape, I'm like, all right, the wind's blowing good. I go into my phone and I'm like, all right, it's a northwest wind today or a south wind or whatever it is. I'm paying attention to what my wind is doing, on that specific time. I'll throw the milkweed regardless of what the wind is there just to see what it's doing. And then I'll take the pictures that I have when I see the deer traveling through there and try to do the math on that and say, all right, it's on a south wind, I'm thinking that I'm safe here, but that's why the deer is choosing to come here at that wind. You're actually not.
I mean, I actually haven't even thought of that. I mean, that is a great point. It's like, because if you look at on whatever weather app you're using on your phone, and it says, okay, today it's coming out of the north, and you happen to be standing in that scrape, and it says it's a north wind, and you let it go, and it's actually blowing from the south to the north. It's like it should be similar. Whenever you come time to hunt
for data hackers out there. Go to Wonderground. I've used this.
Weather Underground?
Yeah. But it's spelled out WUNDER ground. Wonderground with WUND. Go to that website. You can find
historical data,
historical weather. So go and match up. If you really want to get into the data stuff and analyzing it, go back and look at all your cameras. Your cameras have dates on them. And
I got notes for all of that.
Oh my god, it really is cool. But you can also find out and after you hunt the same spot for a year or something, you'll know what the prevailing wind is. It's like more normally here, like right here, it's like northwest and west. Every once in a while, there's like a southwest, and I actually killed both my bucks this year on the southwest wind. And you learn things like that, just after repetition. But use the data if you can. Wonderground is awesome.
Now the only thing on that data is because you'll notice any day, right? If it says the prevailing wind was a north wind, it usually wasn't a north wind all day long.
Right.
So that's the other thing you have to think about.
By the
because
hour.
That
Look at
morning,
it.
yeah. But a lot of times you go back and look at the historical data, it doesn't give you the hour by hour. It only gives you the prevailing wind for that day.
Yep.
Because I started looking at that, and I was like, wait a minute. Like I'm not seeing the correlation that I thought I would.
It didn't make sense.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, wait a minute. Now I'm looking in the season, and just because the prevailing wind was in north today, it's like it could have started off coming from the east for some strange
So if you
reason.
want to get even more into the data, then make sure you document it every day.
Yeah.
And like through the hours of the day, you can document.
I've done that, and then I print out a big map too, and I'll literally, you know, it looks like an FBI like investigation room. Like I'll have like all the scrapes
Little
marked and the
pins.
bedding. I literally do that, and then I'll be like, all right, on this wind they're going this way, on this wind, and then trying to add it up. But I think the problem with that becomes if you become too scientific,
You overthink
start
it.
you
Yeah.
start outthinking yourself
Yeah.
and hopping around too much, and then you lose your
Yeah.
chances. I did that a
was
couple
one
years
thing
ago.
I learned this year. I mean, I had an opportunity, to talk to Hal Blood, and I was telling him a story, about tracking a buck, and it seemed like, a couple days in a row it was going, into the sun. It's like, so that way I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm following it, like it's going into the sun. It's like, so I can't see it like as well if I'm on its back trail. And he's like, you're overthinking it. Like, they're not that smart. Like, they do things out of instinct. They do things by learned behavior also. Like, it's on another podcast, Pat, I talked about with you. It's like a buck crossing a river to avoid predators.
Yeah.
So that was a learned behavior when he was younger, and he kept doing that to try to get away from the predator. So there is certain things. Some deer freeze, some deer run. But we can really overthink a lot of this stuff, and it does help. 'Cause we're always trying to find patterns. We're always trying to find the chink in the armor. But I mean, really, it's just, you got to be out there. You got to put yourself in the game. And I know that's something that, it's like Pat and I have talked about too. It's like trying to best utilize your time of when you can go and hunt.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm kind of curious. It's like, I mean, how often it's like, do you guys, get to hunt during the season? How many days a week? How do you use your vacation
This year was
days?
different. This year with
For
COVID,
everybody, yeah.
like in a normal year, I'm leaving my house in the morning to get to work. I'm leaving by 6:30. I get on the train. I go into Boston. I'm in Boston. I get back. I leave at 5. I'm back here at 7 p.m. There's no time to be able to hunt. You take the commute out of the way. I gotta start working at 9. I got 2.5 hours in the morning to be out in the woods for a lot of the time, right? And you got a lot of the afternoon in the early season as well. I mean, that was like, for me, that was the main thing that helped me get this leap this year was COVID. I don't need to do that commute anymore in the morning.
Well, that's been a game changer for everyone. I think is just life in general has gotten improved by getting rid of the commute.
Yeah, I mean, so I literally hunted every single morning that I could, even though I have a newborn kid. I helped out as much as I could with my wife, and she was very patient, and I hunted more than I should this year. But it's going to get easier as the kid gets older. But yeah, I mean, I got out as much as I could, morning, afternoon. That's, I mean, with COVID, it made it a lot easier, and the scouting was like easier too. You get those hours in the morning to go scout.
Do you use vacation days to? I mean, I know you go to Vermont and hunt, so I don't know. Do you go up there and use most of your vacation days? Do you take vacation days to hunt back around here? Or?
Well, so like a few years ago, I would have. Sometimes I would take a whole week off and go hunt Vermont, and I'd stay at my deer camp for the entire time. Opening weekend through second weekend, I'd take however many 9 days off, or the 5 days in the middle off, but I'd have 9 days hunting.
Well, what days do you normally go?
Well, I always go back to Vermont for opening weekend, right? And
Especially
I like
in Vermont.
Yeah, it's like a tradition. And then I like taking Monday off, the Monday after opening weekend, so 3 days. But a couple times I took the entire week off in between opening weekend and the second weekend. Now I won't do that because I know the hunting down here is it's so good and it's better than the hunting at my deer camp. So I'll go up there for opening weekend. But if I'm taking vacation time, I'm spending it down here.
Yeah. What about you?
I mean, I kind of built. Luckily for me with my business, the fall isn't like a in high demand kind of time. I'll be doing a lot of editing and stuff then, so I can do it in the evening. So literally every chance I can. The biggest problem comes down to, and I'm sure you know this too, Neil, is that choosing not to go into your best spots unless it's like optimal, and that's like the hardest thing.
That's something I got to work on.
When you have a lot of time, it's just like you want to so bad, you know. You're like, I want to go in there. I have a couple spots, luckily, that I feel are like bulletproof, regardless of, you know, if it's a west northwest or, you know, northeast wind of any kind, any sort of north or west wind, I'm good in this one particular area. But this year there wasn't any real targets in there for me. But for the most part, my other spots are so specific that having so much time makes the decision tougher, you know, because the more you're in the woods during hunting season in a specific area you're trying to kill a mature buck in, you're gonna limit, you know.
Oh, you can actually make your odds better. I have a solution to that, Pat.
Your ozone machine?
No. I have a solution to that. Like, so you can actually, in a piece of woods, choose spots that you want to burn. So it's a game of chess.
Oh, yeah.
So you can go ahead and have that buck thinking you're doing one thing, you're hunting him over here, and you're waiting for that right time. He's more comfortable in that area where you haven't been hunting him, and then all of a sudden you slip in when it's the right time. So it's always that chess game. So there's these different strategies that can come into play. And so that's where it's like, I mean, I hunt any opportunity that I get, but I'm not saying I might not. I mean, I'll stay out of a piece of wood sometimes, and I'll go hunt different areas, but sometimes I will purposely hunt a spot to screw it up.
How big of a radius do you think around your tree specifically do you screw up when you hunt a specific area? Is it 100 yards, 50 yards, 200 yards?
I mean, that's just a really hard question to answer because it depends on specifically what is going on in that location. You know, it's like, I mean, you know, am I hunting? I mean, not that I hunt fields. It's like, you know, but am I hunting a scrape? Am I hunting bedding? Is it thick? Is it, you know, bigger woods, smaller woods? It's like, so there's a lot of factors that go into answering that. But really, it's, you know, it's where that buck's gonna be coming in and going from, and you know, we talked about earlier. You got to ask why, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to take that step back and just say, okay, well, why is this happening? You know. By hunting this spot, how will it affect the other spot? You know, it's so each thing is a little different, you know, and specific when it comes to that. I mean, yeah, as far as, you know, your other question that you asked, not to ignore that one about, you know, using ozone, you know, and scent control. That is, you know, a big part of being successful when it comes to hunting. I mean, I have an ozone closet. I'll make sure I hang all my clothes in there to descent those. Boots, it's like, you know, I mean, I think there's plenty of information out there about how to control your scent. I mean, we don't need to go through that whole regimen about what you can do, but it is, you know, a really important part of bow hunting. You're trying to get close. If you're going into areas, whether it's to check cameras, whether it's, you know, to stand hunt, you want to do everything that you can to minimize your scent, because anything that you can do to stack the odds in your favor are going to help. It's not going to hurt.
I've thought about taking like a sweaty shirt that I've worn and leaving it in the woods to see the reaction of a specific deer. You know,
I've thought the same thing too.
Like I've wanted to do it, but I don't want to ruin the spot. But I've thought of doing that and then being like, all right, if they react negatively to it, you can use it to your advantage on specific winds. And if they don't, if you just got your scent in there continuously and they're just like, oh, this fucking tree just stinks, you know.
Well, they get used to it.
They'll get used to it. Then you're in there all the time, and you're just part of the fabric of the woods, you know.
Yeah.
I've thought about multiple times, like, if you've got your spot that you can hunt. What if you're up against a bunch of conservation land? What if you got like 10 guys the night before, the weekend before opener, to walk through in a line, kind of like a drive through the conservation land to pile them up in your area? Do you think that like just going back to what you were saying before about like you kind of purposefully will go into one spot because maybe they'll bounce over into a different bedding area?
I mean, I think that would work. I mean, I've done it before myself where I know there's one spot where I hunt. I know across the street there's a small little teeny like swampy kind of spot, and I know deer hold up there. So I'll purposely go into that spot sometimes throughout the season, just walk through it just to jump deer out of there because I know
you kind of want them.
Yeah, because the more that I've been jumped out of there, the less safe they're going to feel there. The more safe they'll feel where I'm hunting them. I mean, I think you're going to be hard pressed to probably get a group of 10 guys together
to stomp through conservation.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I thought of going in areas in the night and checking cameras and stuff like that at nighttime, so that it makes it so that they're like oh, the danger comes in here, 9, 10 o'clock at night. It's never here during the day. I'm safe here during the day, and that's another
I've done
hypothesis that I haven't done.
Yeah,
you've gotten in the stand a couple of times. You told me you got in at like 3 in the morning and waited.
I haven't slept in a stand yet, but I've come close.
I almost did that this year. I almost went in at 2 o'clock, but I knew there was a couple other guys that were relatively close, and I did not want to risk having him not choose that bedding area because I was there and just walk in front of some other guy. So I pussied out.
I did have one time. This is probably 2012, if I had to guess. There was a buck that I had gone in, as you said, ridiculously early. Like I get in there and basically plan on going to sleep, in the stand, freeze my ass off. It's so cold and I can't move for hours. It wasn't a long walk in, and I'm set up in the stand, and sure enough, it's like here comes a buck, walking in, right under the tree, and he's smelling where I'd probably done. I think I did squats before I got in the stand just to try to get some body warmth going. And, he left, and then sure enough, it's like another buck, hours later, right at first light, comes in. It's like, and I think I heard those 2 bucks fighting, actually, that morning. But, sometimes, yeah, it's like you got to get in early. It's like because they identify, that right around, whether it's at daybreak, just before, they identify that, with hunters. That's where, I think everyone's probably experienced that if you walk in, half an hour before it's light, or if you leave a long time afterwards, the deer won't spook at all. You're going to see, if you have a headlamp going, you're going to see eyeballs. It's going to look at you. They won't even move. Like, they'll let you almost walk up and kick them in the ass before they're even going to do anything, because they just don't associate that necessarily with danger at that point in time. So you can use, a lot of that stuff, to your advantage. I can say with certainty, it's like that it won't affect them the same.
Mm-hmm. But that just speaks to your success too. Is just your willingness to get up and be in a stand at 3 in the morning.
Oh, I've trust me, I've gone and thought before. It's like, you know what? If I want this buck, I have to
do what no one else is willing to do.
Exactly.
You've never done that?
What, going at 3? No, I've gone in probably 2 hours before light. So I've left my truck at 4 in the morning for a 6:30 sun up, but no 3 in the morning stuff.
Yeah.
Not yet, but next year I might have to. I'll be in there.
I
might go sit there now until next November and try to get it done.
He'll be used to you by then.
It's interesting because that's what Brian said, Visco on the last podcast, where the day that pretty much broke him was he had this buck, he had him dead to rights, right? He knew that he was in there, just like you said earlier too. He was in this bedding area. He's in there. I'm going in, and he went in at 3 a.m. I think he said exactly. A couple hours before daylight. I'm going to get in there super early the next day. I know he's there, and then he got up into his tree, and sure enough, right around daybreak, he hears this deliberate walking. He knows there's a big buck coming in. He thinks it's Pop. But then he sees it's not Pop, and he almost quits right there, even with this nice deer in front. It's a huge buck in front of him. He's like, I'm done. I'm going to be done this whole season. And then he said he shot that deer out of frustration. He was just he was so frustrated and so down on himself, he just pulled back and just killed that thing right away. And he thought it was a small buck, and he got up to it, and it was 160 inch.
And he was still pissed.
But he said he felt a little better, but he was man, he almost quit right there. And I don't know, getting in there, but that's dedication. Get in there super early.
Whatever it is. Whether it's getting in early. I've gone before, and it's I literally think this is ridiculous. Why am I walking to a spot miles out of the way to approach where I'm going on trails? It's to not lay scent in bedding areas, and I'm going so far out of the way to approach an area where it would have just been easy just to say, okay, I can walk a quarter of a mile to where I'm planning on sitting, but I have to go through thicker woods. I'm going to risk bumping deer, and so I'll spend an hour walking out of the way, and then I have to spend all that time walking back out around.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to touch on, though, is that you have to go out of the way. Most of my spots, if I just went as the crow flied, it wouldn't be, it would be a quarter of the time walking in. I intentionally go as far out of the way as I can to make sure that I'm not disturbing any of the area that, you're going to be hunting in any way, So I think that that's something, too, that I think people might overlook is they choose a stand or a scrape that they're going to hunt, and they're looking at the easiest way to get into there, quietly or whatever it is. But you also have to factor in, all right, where are the deer going to be during the time you're walking in, and also, is there any chance of them crossing where you walked in?
Yeah.
You got to factor that in. I constantly go way the hell out of the way, like to the point where I sent a couple people to certain stands that I had, like my brother. I'll have him go hunt a certain stand, and they'll literally be like, "Why the hell would you go all the way this way?" And it's like, that's if you want to see deer, that's the way you're gonna go. Like, if you go the way you're thinking, like, good luck.
Never thought of that. Never thought of that until this past season, man.
It made a difference, right?
Oh yeah, definitely, 100% did. I mean, I just never. It just didn't. It's crazy. I mean, I hunted 23 years or so, and I just never thought, like, hey, when you're going in the morning, just don't walk through a feeding area. Like, that simple thing I'd never thought about. But, like, so if you're getting to a stand and there's, like, an oak flat and there's tons of acorns down and you're going in the morning, there's a really good chance that deer are going to be feeding there. You need to avoid that at all costs. Go as far around that as you can. And that's it. Like, I would have never thought. The amount of acorn stands I walked through in the middle of the morning. I mean,
it's
early
crazy.
morning. It's crazy.
A lot of times I'll intentionally try to walk in a really difficult way. For example, one of the stands that I killed, the big one with the drop tine a few years ago, I walk in on like a cliff edge, literally like hopping boulder to boulder the whole way, because I know the chance of deer wanting to break their ankles and legs in that terrain is slim. They're not coming through there, so they're never going to catch my scent, So I'm walking and hopping boulder to boulder almost
I love
all
walking
the way.
on boulders or on. I'm like bobcat or coyote. They like to run along fucking stone walls and logs and shit. Like, one thing like that, I can't say that enough, is like when you're walking through the woods, if there's a long downed log, get up on top of that thing and walk on it. I mean, I don't know how many people do that.
Unless it's wet out. That's when you wipe out.
I don't know how many people do that, but I do it because it's freaking silent. You got a higher point of view, and you got like this whole long, whatever. I've seen deer from standing on top of a log before. And same thing we were talking about stone walls. Like, there's so many stone walls. Those things are pretty silent. If you can walk along,
they can make a lot of noise too, though.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
that little rock on rock, clink, 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 game over.
That's where you got to be sure of every step, man. You got to test it before you do it.
Well, and that's another thing. Like, I mean, when I'm going in at a stand, sometimes it's like, I don't say I don't care about the noise that I make, but like, I feel like I'm gonna be heard no matter what. So it's like, at that point, whether it's going in quick or just going methodical, it's like I can sometimes worry less about the noise, because if I'm gonna be heard, I'm gonna be heard no matter what. So, I mean, it's really, just when you start, going into those spots, it's just, I think more or less, as we were talking about trying to find the ways around, trying to find the access that's less likely to even have you be heard. It's like, or be seen. So, I mean, there is a lot, that goes into that, whether it's spending time in the woods or, using other things to kind of, try to scout and, figure out using maps. It's like, what there is for trails, because I'll try to stay on a trail as long as I can, because deer will associate a trail with, okay, humans walk there. It's like, so
if you're on there, you're one of 100 that have been there in the last month.
Oh yeah. It's common at that point, for the deer just to say, okay, yeah, it's like, it's nothing new, it's nothing different, it's not danger.
Yeah. What about like breaks and rock walls? Do you guys ever target that? I mean, that's also a great spot if you're newbie looking for a place to put a camera. Just
Great
put
spot.
Put it in a break in a rock wall, right?
Yeah.
Or make one.
Yeah, there you go. Totally. I think deer are lazier than we think, and
They take the easiest
way.
resistance.
I can't tell you how many times I've found sheds when I'm leaving the woods and it's getting late. Like a few times, even some of the biggest ones I've found, I've spent all day grid searching these areas. Then all of a sudden I'm running out of light and I'm like, shit, I got 2 miles to get back to my truck. And it's getting dark, so I'm just hoofing it through the woods.
Talk to the friggin' trackers, man. Yeah. Like,
not even thinking where I'm walking. I'm just trying to avoid brush and try to get through it. And then all of a sudden, boop, there's one right at your feet, because you are taking the path of least resistance the same way the deer are. They're not thinking about it. They're just moving through, being nice and smooth with it.
Even this lady that, like, I don't know if I mentioned it in another podcast, but I was way off the beaten trail, just like scouting around, and I saw this lady with an iPad, and she was walking along a stone wall, and holy, I wasn't expecting to see you. And she was like, she like marks down with GPS these stone walls, and she was teaching me a little bit about stone walls and about north south, and how there's like, you know, spiritual connections to north south and ancient, like, you know, the Indians probably built these ones and all that stuff. So she taught me a little bit. I felt like I wanted to teach her a little bit, and I was like, first of all, the deer ran right by her, that I had jumped right before that, and I asked her, "Did you see those deer?" No, I didn't. It was just like I can't believe, because they ran 20 yards away from her.
Yeah.
It was pretty insane. She didn't see him. So she taught me something about the orientation of these rock walls, and I wanted to teach her something. So I was like, you see right here, this is a game trail. You know, you can just tell it's a game trail, and deer are using this all the time. And she knew all about it. She was like, "Oh yeah, I walk those too. Like I'm off."
So
she goes,
one
"I'm
thing.
off the trail all the time, and where I'm walking is, I know that's where the animals walk."
I've seen in a lot of areas where there is walking trails and there's game trails. I don't know how many times I've spent years in a place, and all of a sudden here it's flagged, and now they turn the game trail into a walking trail. It's just like,
It's the worst.
Have you had guys do that? I had a couple guys, and I'm cool with one of them now. A few years ago, these dudes literally, like, it was when actually the drip drop, the shed's over there with the big drop. So I'm like watching, and this will segue perfect into that. I'm watching this buck, and he's enormous, and I got pictures of him in daylight and velvet, and he's coming from these big fields down this run that's like an ancient run, and it comes into this swamp, and I'm like setting up on it perfect, and I'm doing like what we talked about before, going way out of the way and around. Then all of a sudden, about a week before the season, I go in to check cameras, and it's like a rainy day, and I got pictures of a couple dudes on there. These dudes used the deer run. They drive their truck, park it in the field, and bright-eyed the entire deer run and trimmed the shit out of it.
easy walking.
I never got a picture of that deer again for 3 years, ever use that run, and he was using it every single west wind.
I know that kind of thing has ruined, like, my buddy Kevin.
But I'm cool with them now. They're cool.
He's told me a few times where he's like, "Man, I had some great freaking stands where deer would walk, and now they've turned it into a freaking dog walking path."
Yeah, well, so now when I'm in the woods,
It sucks.
I feel bad for whoever's putting these little tags up, but I am constantly pulling ribbons down. I leave the woods with a pocket full of like neon green ribbons. Like, good luck, find that trail on your own, buddy.
So, but that brings up a whole nother topic about etiquette and hunter etiquette, scouting etiquette, and everything. Like, you know, we're talking about you guys are talking about some big bucks, some bucks of a lifetime, right? And you don't want people to find out where they are. And we were talking about before we recorded this, it's like, you know what? Both of you guys and I'm on the same page. I would feel like shit if I went in, if I learned through piecing through different things, and I learned about where some guy was hunting and he's hunting a really big buck, and then I went in there and got that buck without doing all the work, and you had 1,094 days, I think, or maybe even more on that one buck. How many days was it?
1,492.
And you're like 5 years,
Yeah.
so like 1,500, 1,700 days or something on one buck. Like, you guys have built these emotional connections there. Even if I knew where any of those bucks were, I would avoid that place like the plague, because I respect you guys, and as hunters, we need to respect each other's.
Well, and that's where I had a scenario on the buck that I talked about on another podcast with you. It's like the Big Six. It's like that one that I called. I had a buddy. He moved into an area. It's like not too far away from where he was, and it's a spot he had hunted probably years ago, and maybe one of his friends had hunted it, and he started hunting there. And so I was like, well, wait a minute, that's pretty close to where I'm hunting. It's like, and I know that buck overlaps in that area. So, I mean, we're good friends. So it's like I felt extremely confident in having a conversation with him. I think that's probably the most important piece is have a conversation. Like, talk to somebody, because once we talked, like, he obviously wanted to hunt that area, but he wouldn't want to take the buck that he knew that I had all this history with. Like, I know, like, man to man, friend to friend, he would feel like shit if he ended up doing that. But at the same fact, I knew that if that buck walked in front of him, I wouldn't want him to not shoot it. It's like, because, I mean, as much as I wouldn't want him to shoot it, but it would just be unthinkable to have him pass it. Like you can't do that. That's just silly. So it's like from that standpoint, like we had kind of talked, and it was like, okay, well, all right, like if there's a reason for you to be there, like if you have good intel, hunt it, but please just don't hunt it like just based on the fact there's a random chance that you have an opportunity, to get this deer that I'm after. And I had utmost confidence in him, but I think everyone's initial reaction is to assume the worst, especially if it's a friend, it's one thing. But if it's somebody they don't know, a stand that pops up, a camera that pops up, it is so easy to just assume that somebody's doing it to be disrespectful, to assume the worst thing.
Have a conversation first, right?
But every time I have had a conversation with somebody, I mean, I'm sure you guys may have experienced this too. It's like once someone can hear your side of the story, I mean, everyone's first response is to get defensive, to puff up their chest. Like that's how they want to deal with the situation. It's like to get in a pissing contest. It's like, but then once someone has a chance to step back, people calm down, calmer heads prevail. And the thing that I've found when a scenario is like that is that, like, I mean, I had a situation, earlier this year. I mean, same thing, kind of on a trail where I walk in, the deer used, a ladder stand showed up. And I left a note, for the person, to call me. Or I can't remember exactly, but we didn't have exchanging numbers, however it was. And I talked to the guy, and, again, like, I'm kind of upset, but I don't want to seem that way. It's like, and I get that he's like, well, who the heck is this guy, contacting or calling me? And it was like, all I could say is, please put yourself in my shoes. Explain the story. And I found that if you use that phrase, and if you also think about that of the other person, put yourself in their shoes. It's like, and once you get a chance to both calm down and think about it, you can come to a good solution on it.
And for both of you guys, before you get into it, Pat, for both of you guys, like you know your spots like a hawk, right? Like you have cameras, you've been in there many times. You would know if it was like, because there's sometimes where you can get into a spot, you think that you've been the only one scouting it, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this guy's been here 10 years before me, and he's been here, and I just haven't noticed it. With you guys, that's not the case, right? Like, you pretty much know your area.
We're the OGs of the woods we hunt.
So, no, but you know it, right?
Yeah,
you know that you're in there all the time. So you are almost like a deer where, like, you can sense you can sense when someone's in there, and you can read the signs. So for most of those parts, you were the ones that claimed it first, and you've been scouting.
And it's so hard too when you say claim, because a lot of times some of us
not our spot.
If it's public, it isn't your spot.
Exactly. Yeah. In any way. So that's the hardest thing. But we become attached to areas. We become attached to deer. We build these stories in our head. We want to complete the mission, all that stuff. So, like Neil said, I think it's about one, respecting each other as hunters, and putting yourself in the other person's shoes. I know for myself, I would never want to take credit for, some other guy's work.
Yep.
I mean, I could randomly walk into a patch of woods, find a good buck, hunt it, and kill it before some guy that's been hunting it for 6 years gets a chance, But if I knew, if I have a conversation with the dude and he's like, dude, here, this is X, Y, and Z. I've been after this thing I'm out of there. You know what I mean? It is what it is.
Here's the receipts.
Yeah, it is what it is. Just because for me, I know what that's like, and I also want to, I wouldn't want to take the credit for it, in that sense, But I had an experience this year too, where someone, and I became cool with them and friends with them based on it, and they got a good deer in there, and they stayed out, which, at first I was like, there's no way this dude's staying out of here, and they actually did it. So I think that if you're respectful, and a lot of times people will be dickheads. You run into a situation like that, and your first reaction is to be like, dude, I was here already. You seen my shit, like, get out of here, or whatever.
Sometimes they haven't, though. It's like,
exactly. Yeah. So you have to think of that. But I mean, I try to go the other way with it. Like this dude came in there randomly, shot a nice buck. I tried to do the opposite.
Well, I mean, you do have a great approach that I mean, when we've talked about this, you come from you want to help them. It's like, it's like, I mean, you don't want somebody, in the quote, your area, even though it's not our area.
Yeah.
It's like, but I mean, it's like genuinely, it's like, we want to see other hunters be successful. We want to help them in some way, but it's tough. It's like to get sometimes past that initial, like, because one, it's like it's scary to you. It's like,
of course, you're like, how much intel do you give someone? You almost have to feel them out. You're like, all right, how much do they know already? How much do I divulge? And then it becomes, just, do they have the etiquette, and do you have the etiquette to work through the problems with it? And I mean, honestly, I haven't had an asshole experience yet. I think we all hear about these crazy stories, and I think there's shitbags everywhere. But luckily, like I kill shit with kindness constantly. You know, I think that's the best way to approach it. If you approach anything with negativity, chances are you're gonna get some negativity back. So
yeah, and I mean I can speak to that. I mean, there's been times I've had quite a few situations like that, and there's been times it's like I kind of wish that initially I'd probably handled certain situations differently. It's like everyone makes mistakes, and I've done that before. But then I've also had other situations where it's like, as you said, it's like I've handled them with complete respect, and it's like you get that back. It's like,
of course, and
tenfold, and it's like.
So
it's like that's where it's like I mean I think the moral of the story here is when it comes to the etiquette is treat others like you would want to be treated, try to talk it out, and it's like, and don't get defensive, don't get that chest puffed up attitude.
No, you can figure it out. There's plenty of woods for everybody, and then you can work together in a sense to say, hey, this is really where I'm concentrating in this general area here. If you're over here, it's not going to kill me, like.
Yeah, and again, it's like, what are the person's goals too? It's like, why are they there? It's like, and so without trying to share too much information, it's like you can talk through it. But I do think obviously there is certain scenarios, and it's like I don't know kind of what your guys' opinions are, what you guys do. It's like, but on another topic is like, okay, well, you haven't contacted the person, you haven't bumped into them, you don't know them. It's like, well, if you find a stand somewhere, it's like, or you find a camera, it's like how do you handle that? Like, what do you do?
I'm a stalker. I literally and this dude that I met will attest to it. Like I literally patrol the patches of woods I hunt. If I'm just taking a ride or something like that, even with the kids, I take a ride. I happen to see a random truck there with decals on it or something. I'm like, God damn, who's this? Shit, how far in are they?
All right, kids, we're not going to the zoo. We're going to the woods.
Yeah, I know. My kids must hate me. They're like, there he goes again, off on a tangent, talking to some random hunter. But even this dude, I ended up. My scenario was different. I got a picture of the deer that I'm after from someone else, and it wasn't from my camera. So I'm like, oh shit. So now I'm on investigation mode, backtracking. Hey, where'd you get it? Oh, where'd you get it?
You talking about the one that I sent?
Yeah, not even you, someone else. So yeah.
It's happened a few times.
I felt fucking terrible about this. Pat sent me a video, and I sent it to my buddy in Vermont who is brand new to hunting, and I was like, he's not going to send that to, and I told him don't send it to anybody.
This shit ended up back in my phone.
It was back to Pat in 11 minutes.
Don't send stuff to anybody.
Send pictures to your best friend of a deer you were hunting.
I broke hunting etiquette there, and I'm freaking raising my hand.
But you didn't, though. It's like,
if he sends the picture to anybody,
it's my fault.
It's my fault. That's all I can say when it comes to that.
But again,
100%.
also it's me. I'm still learning about everything. I took a leap in hunting this year, but also that I will never send another video. If you send me a video, I ain't sending it to anybody.
But that's the risk that he took.
I took the risk. Yeah, exactly. And I've learned that multiple times. But either way, long story short, I ended up having to do a backwards investigation of all right, where'd you get this pic? Who'd you get it from? Who'd you get it from? And then eventually, figuring it out. And then I figured out who the dude who originally had it was. Now I'm on their Facebook page, and then I just send them a message of a picture of the same buck, just a different angle, same
Pat's
day,
not only
an hour before, And then that starts the conversation, and you can build friendships out of that.
Oh, great!
Because that's literally what happened. I'm cool with the dude now, and I'd say his name, but I don't want people stalking him and then finding out where we are. But he knows where he is. But
by the way, Pat traded in his Jeep, and he's now driving. He actually is driving a Prius. He came in a Prius today.
I told you. So I still got the Jeep though. But
yeah, but you're probably not still driving that around.
No, not for hunting. Prius all the way. Vegan. Speaking of hunter etiquette, this year I have to show you guys pictures. One of the spots I hunted, right? I pull up to the gate there, and
I gotta pee. You guys keep going.
All right.
I was gonna say I gotta go too.
All right, I'm gonna talk by myself.
All right, we'll take a break.
Yeah, we can pause. We can pause.
I talk about it all the time. One thing that is awesome about hunting is that there's so many different ways that you can hunt. You can always keep your hunt fresh by using different weapons or hunting in different seasons. Some state has an early season, some have a late season. You can hunt a buck here and a doe there, and a Saturday here and a Sunday there. Well, one of the easiest ways to change up your hunt, if you haven't got into muzzleloader hunting yet, muzzleloader is a great way to extend your season. In New Hampshire, it's early, before the rifle season, before the bow season. In Vermont, it's late, it's at the end. But muzzleloader hunting is awesome. And so I'm super excited to announce a partnership with Woodman Arms muzzleloader. This muzzleloader actually shoots like a rifle too. And the coolest part about Woodman Arms is they recommend that you not clean your gun. You don't need to clean this thing. If you're using Blackhorn 209 powder, you don't need to clean it. Yeah. Now muzzleloaders are the messiest guns out there. You're shooting powder that's either loosely packed or in a pellet, and just imagine lighting that thing on fire in there. It's an extremely messy thing, but with the Woodman Arms, the way they build it, you don't need to clean that muzzleloader. That's number one selling point in the world. But once you hold this thing, it feels like a rifle. It just feels right in your hands. It's got a hammerless action, so there's absolutely no hammer on the gun. It's got a crossbolt safety. It feels like you're carrying your 7600 through the woods. I'm extremely excited about this partnership. They're making me a gun right now. Throughout the summer as I'm shooting it and into the fall and getting ready, I'll report back on how it shoots. But you don't have to look any further than all the reviews and all the really great hunters in the Northeast and across the country. Really, they're selling all over the country because they're the best muzzleloader in the country. Look at what everybody else is saying about this gun. That's enough for me to endorse it without ever shooting one. But I can't wait to shoot one and follow up with you guys and tell you how it is this summer, this fall. For now, go to woodmanarms.com. Check them out. You can build your own custom gun right there. Call Timmy Bolduc, who was on this podcast and is a good friend of mine, and he'll tell you anything that you need to know about the gun. Woodman Arms, America's most accurate and dependable muzzleloader on the market, handcrafted in New Hampshire. Go to woodmanarms.com and start building your gun today.
All right, we're back. Let's finish off this etiquette talk before we get into something else. But
I think if you meet it with, positivity, it'll most likely end on a positive note. If you try it in a negative way, it might be negative. I know Neil was telling a story earlier about a note on a camera turned into a trash bag on another camera. So.
I mean, stuff can happen,
Yeah.
It's so really you just want to, try to use as much respect as possible and, put yourself in the other person's shoes. I mean, that's really the best way to handle it. And I mean, there is certain situations where you'll walk in, to a piece of woods and there's stands that look like they've been there for 20 years and you don't know if somebody's using them or not. And, from that standpoint, you don't know if they're bow season stands, you don't know if they're gun season stands. So it's really sometimes, tough to tell. I mean, I've gone before, and I know there's, some debate about, okay, well, it's someone else's property, you're not supposed to touch it, it's which, again, I don't want somebody necessarily touching my stuff, but, if I had a stand that's been there, for a long time, it's I kind of think, it's okay, well, if somebody did something harmless, if someone stuck a stick, in the ladder going up, to a stand, it's well, if that stick's still there, after the season's done, that probably means, it's an abandoned stand.
So that's a common thing, right? I've heard it a bunch of times, somebody will put a stick there and if it's gone, right? That's something I've never encountered yet, but I've seen on Facebook forums and stuff.
Yeah, and I have seen some people that get really upset about that. You can't do that. It's when it comes to a stick or something like that. But it's well, how do you know? Are you going to completely avoid an area? I wouldn't want to go ahead and set up a stand right next to someone else's if I knew that they were going to be using that. So
in suburbs, sometimes it's you don't really have a choice though. In suburbs where there's very limited amount of land, there was a place that I scouted this year that I got some really big bucks on cameras. I saw 5 or 6 stands in that general area, and it was maybe 80 acres max, but 5 or 6 stands in there. Some of them were old for sure. You could tell they were just degenerated. People haven't touched them in a while. But I got up to this one stand, and there was a plastic, Ziploc bag hanging with a note inside of it. And I opened it, and I read the note. And the note was this is my, you could tell it was an old person that wrote it too. It was this very shaky writing, but it was this is my stand, and if you're touching this, then I have you on camera, and just smile for the camera, and if you decide to destroy my stand or steal anything from this, then I will not judge you, but God will judge you. And it was this crazy, like, note, like this long written out note, like judgment note, right? And I thought it was funny.
Guilt trip.
Yeah, I put it back in.
Good strategy.
Yeah, it was a pretty good strategy, right? And I ziplocked it back up, and, you know, of course, I touched his stand, but I had no intention of sitting in his stand or hunting from his stand.
Yeah, there was a note there. You read the note.
But I did. My camera was only 40 yards away, and that's the one camera that I've ever had tampered with. Like, I wasn't getting pictures. It was a cell cam, and it was like one of my most active cameras all like fall. And all of a sudden, I was just like 10 days, like no pictures. What's going on? And it's a far away, hard for me to get into, but I eventually went down, and yeah, it was wide open, taken off the tree, but like wide open where rain and all the shit can hit it, and no card in it. So I don't know if it was him or not, but yeah, I don't know. What's the etiquette there, man? Like, I knew his stand was there, and I put up a camera 40 yards away, but we're in this tiny patch of woods. I don't know.
Well, I mean, everyone has a different interpretation of it. Like, that's kind of the problem, right? Is that, I mean, some people would say it's like, all right, if you see a camera there, if you see a stand there, you shouldn't do anything near it, right?
And when I first put that camera up, I didn't know the stand was there.
And that often
But then
happens.
later I was like, oh, there's a fucking stand right there.
Yeah, and then that can often happen, and so there is that interpretation. It's like that sometimes people, again, assume the worst, right? You know, they don't know. It's like, so you have to assume that that person, you know, or, you know, you didn't have any idea that his stuff was there. It's like, but then some people would say, well, it's public land. You can go ahead, you know, and do whatever you want. You can set up a camera right on top of it. You can set a stand right up on top of it.
Yeah, you see those Arizona pictures.
Oh yeah, that's crazy. Around the watering hole.
20 cameras on the same tree, right?
That's nuts.
Well, and then, I mean, I've sometimes ran a cell cam and a regular cam because I want one cam on video and a cell cam. So
I've done that just to see if my cameras like have a good trigger or not.
Yeah.
Like, what is this, a bad camera or a good one?
But I can see somebody else interpreting it as, oh, it's a community tree, right? Well, let's go ahead and we'll stack my camera on top of that too, you know? So there's a lot of stuff that can go into that. And I mean, really, it's like I would kind of think, try to avoid, you know, where other people are hunting, especially if you think they're actively hunting there. I mean, that's kind of my opinion.
But how do you get one thing I've found, and I just keep going back to, is like, you know, if you find a place that's got a bunch of stands, there actually is a possibility that no one has hunted that spot in 5 years. And those are just old stands that have been in the woods.
I talked to a guy who literally peppers the woods with stands intentionally to keep other people out.
Mm-hmm.
He'll put like 5 ladder stands in a patch just to make it look like it's too busy.
I think Petrick said it. He's like, man, when I die, I'm going to leave a lot of iron in the woods. And hunters die, man. Shit happens. People die, and they might not ever go get them. And those stands, like, you can't always think it's an active stand. That's why I think your stick thing, when you put a stick, you know, on a ladder, that is a very valid thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to do any harm. It's like I'm just putting a stick there.
See if it moves throughout the season. Yeah,
see if it moves. It's like, yeah, I mean, or if somebody, you know, has just a hang on, it's like, okay, if I can put a stick, you know, in that hang on. If somebody shows up there once and has to remove a stick from their stand,
and they would probably assume. I know I would assume that it's probably a piece of a tree fell in it. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I kind of try to also, if I was to do it, I try to do it in a way. It's like, so you're not going to confuse it. It's like, okay, this stick didn't get jammed in here. This didn't just fall. So again, you know that somebody else, you know, knew that, you know, you're there. It's like, but again, it's like you're not trying to, you know, do anything malice. You're not trying to, you know, cause any harm. It's like you're just trying to say, hey, is someone using
this? Do you guys have business cards?
I've done that a couple times.
Like throw the business, like, I've been in where I found cameras in a place that I've been heavily scouting or hunting. I actually don't have very many business cards anymore, but I'll like get in front of it and I'll wave, and then I'll like put my phone up and dial my phone number into, you know, the numbers here, right?
Yeah.
And put that in front of it. But
so with that, I guess that's another great point. All right. So the people that try to like write a note on their cell phone,
You can't read it usually.
No, you can't read it.
It's
You
usually
try to put it
blurry.
up in front of your cell
I
phone.
was gonna say I never got a call or a text from that.
Yeah,
Okay,
because they
so-
look blurry as shit.
Yeah, so I have gotten pictures from people. It's like on like property that they owned. It's like that they didn't want anybody hunting. At that point, you're done. Like you can't hunt there anymore. And so they've held up a phone, in front of it, and it has a big written out note. Please call me. This is my number.
Yeah.
You
can't see it.
No, you can't see that.
It
It's
just
like
looks like somebody showing you porn.
Yeah.
yeah.
What is that? What is this weirdo doing?
I mean, maybe they're saying, "Hey, good luck." It's like you wouldn't know. So just don't make that assumption that if someone is trying to write a note on a phone to another hunter, you can't read that screen. So
Yeah.
you'd have to go out and physically grab a piece of paper and hold it up. And even then, you don't know with the trigger. It's like if it's going to catch that picture.
But
of
if
that
you have
thing.
business cards, you can put it right in the backside of the camera. Just have it right there, and I think that's even way bit easier.
And again, you could. It's like if I got a business card that said Patrick Burns on it, it's like I'd be like, yes, I am in the right spot.
fucking spot.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I got his email.
the
I know.
electric buck is gonna walk by me tonight.
He is dead.
I'm going to forward him a bunch of these stupid forward emails.
Yeah, that's it.
All right,
That's it. Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, man, be good. What percentage of the population actually hunts, especially where we
We're
are,
the minority.
the super duper minority.
You
So
know
at the
what?
end of the day, it's,
I actually saw this percentage from Massachusetts the other day. What do you think the percentage of Massachusetts population hunts?
0.06.
What do you think?
Percentage wise,
Not even a percent. There's no way.
I mean, I would have to put it at less than 1% too, probably. I mean, I want to say 3.
3%.
I was gonna say I
Yeah.
want to say 3.
I
but
saw 3%, and my wife even, she was like, "What? That doesn't make any sense."
but it seems high.
It does seem high, but 3%, that's low as hell.
Well,
If
so
you think
wait a
about
minute.
percentages.
3% by a hunting. Was it hunting and fishing or was it hunting?
I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember it being hunting.
Yeah.
And then it brought me up to like, all right, let me think about what Vermont's like 30%,
Yeah, Maine's
Okay,
like 50%.
right?
Yeah.
So then it
No, I
kind of
think
does.
Vermont's one of the highest. I think, isn't it?
Vermont is, yeah.
I think I've
so,
heard it.
so then you start to think like, then it's not really that high. 3% Massachusetts, sure.
Well, compared to 30.
It's a real low population. So at the end of the day, we're
Well,
all
most
on
of
the same team.
population's in Boston, right? And the Boston percentage is probably 0.0 something percent, right? But 3% overall.
Yeah,
it
chances
sounds-
are
it
if you're a
still
hunter,
sounds
you're probably
high,
not
but-
living in a high rise.
Yeah. But still, I mean, it surprised me.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, that means there's not that many of us. We should be sticking together. We should be
Absolutely.
working together, and we should all be friends.
So what are our thoughts on cell cams? Because I posted in the Vermont Vermont hunting page the podcast about where that a cell cam directly helped me get this buck, and I didn't realize, but there was a giant debate going on in Vermont, and Vermont's one of the like we were just talking about 30% or 40% of people in Vermont hunt. I think it's like 80% are gun owners. 80% of households in Vermont own a gun. It's something crazy like that, right? So they're super old school about stuff. And I posted this because I post my podcast in every Northeastern page, and I got so much ridicule. And people are going, "Oh, way to do that just to stir the pot right now." Because apparently Vermont had a fish and game board meeting. The Vermont Fish and Game had a board meeting coming up, and they were talking specifically about cell cams because one of the groups in Vermont that advocate for conservancy and stuff that isn't, they're not partnering with the Fish and Game or whatever. It's a separate thing. But they brought up a cell phone. They were talking. They wanted to ban cell.
they're proposing
cams,
a law
right?
against it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I put this podcast up, and everyone's like, "Oh, this guy's just stirring the pot," and "Oh, look at this is a perfect reason why we do need to ban cell cams." And other guys are going, "No, like everybody's like different. One like you can't. We're not all getting out in the woods at the same time." And I was like, "Guys, this is a Massachusetts deer, first of all. Second of all, it was with a bow, and it was on the ground. I would be actually a proponent for, cell cam, putting a ban on it if you're hunting with a rifle. I think that's considerably easier. Where in the scenario where I got my buck, I got a picture. It wasn't the buck, but it was does, and I went out there. If you're against the whole getting a picture and then going to cut off a buck and killing it, that thing, I'm against that too. And especially if it's with a rifle. I think if it's with a bow, you can make exceptions. So you got to have these rules.
Well, so there's a few aspects with that, right? So one, you can talk about the ethics of it, right? That is a huge aspect of it. Then another one is from a management standpoint, right? If the point of hunters is to go out and keep populations in check, does it matter to a certain extent,
right,
what the method is that you did it, as long as it was, to a point, it's like, it's like legal, right? So from that standpoint, whether you were sitting on your couch, got a picture, and okay, there's a deer standing in your back field, it's like you could have just been sitting there watching your back field the whole time. It's like, so from that standpoint, if it's serving the purpose of still managing the herd, and they have license numbers, they have permit numbers, they have all those other restrictions in place from a biology and standpoint, well, okay, does it really matter the method that you use? Now it's a matter of personal choice.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect. Now from the ethical standpoint, it's like if I was the one kind of, making the laws, it's like, in that, it's like each person should have kind of a choice, right? It's like, well, should you restrict somebody from shooting a spike horn versus, shooting, a 6 or 8 pointer? It's like that comes down to certain biology, standpoints and what you're trying to do to increase the age structure or whatever else, the health of the herd, right? But just cell cams alone, I like New Hampshire's laws. And
I do too.
And so for those that don't know the New Hampshire law, I guess to kind of clarify that on that, because there's been some confusion that some people think cell cams are illegal in New Hampshire, and basically the law is you can use cell cams. You just
they're not legal. It's just
they're not illegal. You mean
it's not illegal. You just can't shoot a buck within 24 hours.
And actually, that's where some of the confusion is. So this is where it gets tough. It's the same calendar day. So it's not 24 hours.
All right,
So basically, once the clock strikes midnight, it's a fresh day.
Which is kind of dumb.
So, well, actually, the reason I like it is because, okay, if you get, like, for me, like, I've used cell cams in New Hampshire, right? So I have all my pictures sent to transmit to me at 8 o'clock at night.
If you get one at 11 p.m.
So I won't get that, though. So all the pictures are sent.
All right, yeah.
I have a one transmission a day. So at 8 o'clock at night, I'll get my pictures from 8 o'clock at night the previous day. So at that point in time, the most recent picture that I could have when I go out to hunt the next day, I mean, you could have it set for 11:59, I guess, right? So you could get a picture that was taken right before midnight, but then if you can't start hunting till, sunrise, it's like whatever it is, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, there's 6 or 7 hours between whatever that deer passed your camera and where it is now. So at that standpoint, it's like it's all past information. Yeah. It's like, as we talked about, earlier, it's like that deer is not going to make a loop and necessarily walk back by your camera.
Yep.
So all it does is the only advantage is that you're saving time having to check cameras, and you're not maybe laying as much scent down in the woods. Mm-hmm. But from that standpoint, yes, cell cams are an advantage, but it allows you to probably be more of a sportsman, I would say. This is the argument that I would make. Because you can actually spend more time learning the woods, more time hunting, and less time checking freaking cameras.
Yeah.
It's like, so from that standpoint, it's like you're actually going to be able to spend more time doing what we're actually meant to be doing, and the technology is sitting there, but it's not working to your advantage to where you can just walk out and immediately shoot a deer.
Yeah,
it's
and when I put that cell cam back there, it wasn't because I was like, I'm gonna cut off a deer that's coming through and go out there and like just.
Well, in your defense, you said you were kind of a little bit torn on kind of the whole thing of it as well. Of course,
even when I was in the moment, I was like, is this how I want to kill a deer? And like we were talking about earlier, sometimes things happen and it adds to the story. And it's like, even if it's not up to your caliber of what you would normally shoot for a deer, like you were saying, but if it's like part of a story and you want to end a story, then it makes sense to do it. And yeah, of course I was torn, but and I didn't put cell cams up back there for that reason. I'm putting up cams again to scout and keep track of everything. So whatever, it happened. within 5-day period, I got that. That buck was on the first one. The 3 days before I ended up killing him, I actually did get a picture of him, and I was like, I'm gonna go out there and try to stalk and kill him, or we'll see. I'll at least put a stalk on, and we'll see what happens. I'll make a decision.
Oh, and it was a great story. It's you got close to him,
yep.
and you had an
Jumped
opportunity.
over the wall.
But then he crossed that boundary. It's like, and then you said, okay, like, you know what?
You
I had
used
an
your
opportunity.
ethics.
And at that point,
you
I
drew
was
the
like,
line.
I was happy. I was like, I'm happy I didn't kill him. He's a nice 6-pointer. He'll be big next year, right? And then 3 days later, I get the pictures again of these does just flying through, and it was in a downpour rainstorm. And I know that no person was out there pushing them, so I was like, something pushed it. Maybe it's a buck. Let me spring out of editing this podcast and just go give it a go. That was fun. That was like changing up the game. It's not how I normally hunt, right? Went out there in a freaking whim, grabbed my bow, and I was out there for 10, 15 minutes, and I see a doe coming through, and I'm on the ground, and then I'd see him coming through, and it's just like everything built up. I don't want to go through the whole story again, but it built up, and I was like, man, this is awesome. It's on my property, and I'm going to shoot him.
Yeah, and I think
the decision.
It's just a tool, man. It depends on how you use it, and I think that, I have some, one of my hunting mentor guys is an older dude, and he's brought it up a couple times. Like, he likes them, but he feels like the evolution of where it's going, it's like, where's it going to stop? Are they eventually going to have drones that you got a camera
fair,
on,
man.
and
That's
you're like,
fair.
Phew, you just shoot it when you see it,
Which
But-
I think they do have that.
That's
in
a
some,
fair
like,
argument.
Weird high fence places that,
Of course,
you
you just
can
be able
hit
to-
a mouse key and
you just knock it down. Yeah, no, I think they're a great tool. I think New Hampshire's law is probably a way a lot of them are going to eventually go, because
Well, there's actually there's a law proposed to actually get rid of that law and just adopt what Massachusetts has about that. Yeah, no, if you just use it as the camera as it is, you don't have to worry about the same calendar day law. It's
So there's a couple things I would say about that, though. Like, I would suggest, after having killed a deer that way, it was awesome the first time. It was a new thing. I won't experience that again. If I had the opportunity, I still wouldn't go out and harvest deer like that. I wouldn't. Even if it was a monster, I just wouldn't go do it. I just wouldn't. But I think there's a couple of things that we can talk about where, if you are going to make a law, maybe one is you can't have a cell phone camera within 500 feet of your dwelling or whatever, right? So you wouldn't be able to actually get out. It's got to be further away, because what they're supposed to be used for is distance scouting, whatever. If you want to make a radius away from a house, I think that would be fair. I also think it would be fair. It is a huge challenge to still be able to jump out.
Well,
Even
just
if you
like
did
cutting a
have
track,
it
right?
with a bow, it's still a huge challenge.
they'd be
I
like
think
no hunting in the snow,
A gun,
yeah.
a gun is a significant advantage if you were going to actually try to cut a deer off with a cell cam and a gun. That's a significant advantage. I think the odds of somebody getting what happened back here and going out with a bow on the ground and being able to kill it, I mean, the odds of that is probably 2%.
Yeah.
It's just so many things can go wrong. So I don't know. There's a few things to consider when you're talking about.
I just wonder.
laws
I
that
wonder
you put
where
into
it's
place.
where it's gonna go, because I got 12 cell cams. What do you got? 20 something?
No, I think I think it's 20 on the nose, 19 or 20. I don't know. I could look at my app, but
Yeah. So I got
guess-
12, and then 60 regular cameras. But as time moves on, I'll get up to the 20s. He'll get up to the 30s, and once you have a ton of them, you're getting this real-time information. I mean, I guess it's like anything else. You can use powers for positive things or negative things, and I personally use it. For me, it's more about, I'm really invested in the entire picture of the entire herd of deer in the areas I'm looking at. I'm monitoring the does more than the bucks. I have an inventory of the bucks, but once it comes time for hunting, I'm paying more attention to where the does are, how they're moving around, so that way I can try to position myself right. So I don't know. I'm just curious where it's really going to go, because if you think about in the last 15 years, or I talked to the oldest school dude, and he was saying the cameras back in the day, they used to have a piece of thread.
Tripwire.
Yeah, tripwire. But even before that, they used to just use thread in general to know that did the deer come
go through there. Yeah.
Like
and
put
in which
put the
direction did
stick
they
on
go?
a stand, yeah. It's like
In which direction were the deer going? It would leave a little V, and that's what they did. But now we're to the point where you
Sure,
literally
Indians did that too. Indians probably did that shit.
they did all that shit.
Yeah, and that's where it's like, with the cell cams, it's like, a lot of people too, it's like, it's understanding how they work. It's not necessarily a live action game cam. There is, I remember, you had said, on the podcast, and we talked about your deer, it's like, there was a 2-minute delay. It's like, that's kind of right now, the quickest that you can even get the pictures is 2 minutes.
Yeah. And then I was out there 5 minutes later or something. It was like 7 minutes after the picture came through, I was there.
Yeah, and so, it's just like, okay, if you drove down a road and a buck track comes across that road, it's like,
oh, yeah.
It's like, not only that, you're able to actually still follow the deer.
Yeah.
If it's a cell cam picture, it's like, well, if there's no snow on the ground, you can't even follow that deer. It could go anywhere.
You're reminding me, like, that brings up a lot of points where people, what I've heard from that, too, is like, all right, well, if you're going to ban cell cams, then you can't communicate between hunters. If 5 people are hunting the same spot, like, when you... Even in Pennsylvania, it's illegal to do this, where you're like, if you're hunting with a group, you can't radio and say, oh, I just jumped one, he's on his way to you. That's intel. You can't do that in Pennsylvania. So, like, if you think about it, you can't, if you're going to ban the use of, like, cell cam information, it's like your neighbor can't call you and say, oh, a buck just bedded down behind my field, and I know where he bedded down. Like, in most scenarios, if a neighbor called you and told you that, and it's like a buck that you want, you're going to go and try to make a play on that buck. But that's illegal in some states. And, like, you get into this whole concept of what is legal and what isn't. A cell cam in the woods that is giving you real-time information is the same thing as a human being that you're hunting with that is in that position giving you real-time information.
Mm.
So where do you draw the line on that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, and the hard part is that, it's really, I don't know, it's like, I don't want to go and take away ever. It's like from some guy, it's like if he doesn't get the opportunity, again, you could say, it's priorities, right? To make the time to, to spend as much time as I do, in the woods or hunting. But it's like, really, if there's a guy that, like, if that to him means something, that, okay, a deer walks through his yard and he gets a picture notified to him, and he can, open up his slider door or step out of his house or whatever and, and harvest that deer. It's like, and provide meat for his family. It's like, good for him. It's like, that's not,
and again,
that's not
the
for me to
state
judge.
sets the tags and everything. They set the limit that they want us to, kill deer. And as hunters and as conservationists, we all talk about, like, no, we're a huge part of keeping the population in check and a healthy balance. And then we get into these, like, well, it's kind of a faux pas where it's like, how much is it really about that if we care about how somebody else harvests?
So I think this brings me to, like, kind of I think like a slightly different topic, but a good thing to think about is that it's a matter of educating people outside of hunting about some of this stuff. Because if someone didn't know about cell cams and why or how they could be beneficial to a hunter, not just in harvesting animal, but learning about animals, the science that goes into it. What I do for work is, I run an all-women's gym, in Massachusetts. It's like, so
okay.
Nice.
All right.
So
A lot of whitetail there.
All right.
So
go on.
Well, so as we talked about, though, guys, all right, Massachusetts, there's a small percentage of the population, who even hunt, okay?
Yeah.
So then we're also talking a population of people who it's like aren't exposed to hunting culture. They don't understand. They're not educated on what it means to hunt and what goes into it. So when we look at it as far as like the science of it, when I start talking to some of the ladies at the gym, it's like they're really intrigued once I start talking about, like, wow, I never really realized the time and effort that goes into it, the science that goes into it, the amount that you learn and care for these animals. It's like, so...
Yeah, I don't think people realize that, because I think a lot of people think we just walk into the woods and slaughter Bambi. And then
so that's the thing is whether it's
like,
etiquette and respect.
That sounds scary.
Yeah, whether it's the etiquette and respect for other hunters, right, or it's like the outside population looking at the minority of hunters. It's like, well, we're not doing it as from a negative perspective. We're doing it also because, yeah, you're going to love and respect these animals. Like once you put in the amount of time and effort that we have been doing it. So it's like, yes, if there is things that work to our advantage, like to help us be more successful, it just allows for a choice. It says, okay, do I want to take the easy way? But a lot of people are going to choose to take the hard way out of it. They're going to choose to say, you know what? Well, because it's been made easier, I'm going to up my standards. I'm going to try to learn more. I'm going to try to work harder. I'm going to try to challenge myself more because I know that, you know what, I can still, help manage the population. I can still go ahead, and be successful and provide meat for my family. But it's like they can make a choice because now they have more information. Mm-hmm. And it's like there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing negative.
No, that's all it's about. It's about education. And, that's what we use the cameras for, right? To learn more about the deer,
And so whether it's cell cams or other types of cams, I mean, I guess to kind of, get off this topic and transition, it's like, so how do you use?
I like videos.
All right.
Videos are the way to go. And this is just the last couple years I started putting all my cameras to videos. And I buy a ton of cheap cameras. I love the wild games.
Ugh.
I know. It's either love it or hate it. Man, when I can, well, let me backtrack. I bought one from Cabela's probably 5 years ago. That was like $349. It was like a Cabela cam. It was like a real nice one. It has a little and the icon in the corner has like a bunch of different colors. And it was a great camera. Got stolen. So I literally, after that, was like, all right, $40 max. So I got a ton of like $50, $60 cams at Dick's. And I put them all on video just because you learn so much more, and I didn't realize until I started running them on video how much more you learn, For example, a buck coming in and making a scrape. You might literally just get that buck kind of walking by normally, depending on how long you have your delay set on the camera.
Nothing better than a buck scrape video, man.
I know. I got a ton of them now, but even direction of travel, other things that I learned from them, sometimes I'll have a bunch of doe on the camera and I'm watching what are the doe looking at, I got a picture of a video of my big boy this year, and then the next day in the daylight I got a bunch of does, and I can see that the doe are like their ears are like radars, and they're paying attention and smelling the scrape and using the scent and looking for where this buck is now, So you learn from being able to take a glimpse into their world and understand what are they doing, what are they really doing and how? And if it was just a picture, you would never know that. You just get a glimpse of it walking by, maybe blurry, and that's it,
Yeah, it could be on edge, it could be calm, it could be, doing whatever. It's,
yep.
Yeah.
And it could be walking in this direction, and how many times have you seen them, back up and go this way, or sharp left all of a sudden? It's not.
Yeah.
You assume, they came into frame and they're gonna walk through and they're over here now, and nah, they go around that tree and then hook to the left, So
or go back where they came from sometimes.
Yeah.
What about with your cell cams though? Not video, right?
No, I can't afford any of those ones.
I don't think. Yeah, I was gonna say I haven't come across them. It's like I get pictures. I mean, there's
so
somewhere you can get
a couple of the spy points do it, right?
No. I think all spy points, all of them, you can choose to have pictures taken and then go into video. It's like
mine
the
doesn't
video.
offer that.
No, the video wouldn't get sent to you.
That's just a cool one. Video of some does.
But you would go ahead and have the video on your SD card afterwards. Only the picture is going to get sent to you, not the video. But the video will get stored on the card. So from that standpoint, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I go ahead and I end up like pulling the cards, I don't often review all the pictures that are on there because I've already gotten them sent to me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot to clean up. It's like, I mean,
what I've
how many
noticed,
cameras do you run?
All together, I think in the 70s. So yeah, but
I mean, I got like 60. It's like
and that's, I mean, people look at me like I'm crazy. Even other guys that hunt a lot, and they're like, "What? How can you even do that?" And the way I look at it is, I kind of break the woods up into sections. Like if I park in a certain area, I know that I may have 10 cameras that I can access from that particular area I'm going in, and that's like one section of the property to me. And that's how I kind of break it all down. I mark them all on my phone, but I mean, I'm sure you're the same way. I remember where they all are. I have like a photographic memory in the woods.
I don't. I forget them. So I think that also comes to another good topic. Onyx.
Yeah.
Game-changing tool. Like, I mean, it is unbelievable when it comes to not only just being able to mark shit and like put down waypoints of scrapes, rubs, cameras, but like I will use that to literally like, I mean, if I have 60 cameras, I've had those 60 cameras in 300 locations.
Yep.
So I can go through and change it. I mean, one of the ways that I'll do is any of my active cameras, I'll change the color of the icon to white.
I got so many waypoints all over the place. Cameras.
Let me
everywhere.
screenshot that real quick. Yeah. So then from there though, like if it's a camera that I've pulled, I'll turn it to black. So you can also, like, I don't know if everyone knows this.
I do that.
You can filter the content on Onyx. So
Yep.
you can go ahead and change from, okay, I want to filter not only trail cameras, but now I want to go to white trail cameras. So I can see what trail cameras are still active in the woods.
I changed the color on them, so I'll have my cell cameras are all blue icons.
I didn't
the
even
regular
know that,
ones are red icons.
We'll
and
teach
then-
you some shit.
Yeah, and then the ones that are inactive, or sometimes even now, I'll go to an area and I don't have a camera with me,
The tracking feature is
and I know I
awesome,
want a
too.
camera there, so I'll put like an icon of an inactive camera there,
Okay.
just so I
Well,
remember.
what's your
like,
color of inactive?
I think it's white.
Yeah, so I go white as
So it's
like,
like I got to bring one there in the future.
yeah, so like what I mark white is whether it's a camera, that's active.
Yellow.
If it's,
Yellow.
okay, yellow. All right.
Yellow's inactive.
What's the name of that road again?
This one right here. But look at, I mean,
Forgotten Brook.
Even if you look right here, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 cameras just in that one little
Yeah.
little area. You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm watching
That's
every
that's like me.
option. You know, every
Yeah.
run,
Yep.
everything. So Onyx is cool. I think the only problem for me is going to be I'm filling it up so much that how much of the information is really going to be relevant, you know, like every feeding area, every scrape, like eventually it becomes just a blurred mess, you know. Now I'm starting to look at it and be like, all right, there's so much shit going on, you know, like there's just
So that's where the content filter feature I think works great because you literally could filter out all that content and just view the map.
I just
like-
want to see scrapes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like so you could see that. You could see it without your tracks that are on it. So there's
Now,
all
do you
kinds-
guys use the tracking feature though? Like I found
yeah.
myself using that a lot.
I use it for backtracking, you know, for this year, backtracking the big boy
Yeah,
a
if
ton
you're-
of times, following exactly
Yeah.
where he went, marking every feeding area
Yeah.
along the way.
If you got a bunch of snow and it's easy to find tracks, like throw on the tracking feature on Onyx and walk that deer, and hopefully it's a buck. Walk that buck for as long as you can, and you're gonna have an exact track of a GPS of a buck. Yeah, look at that. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just showing like the amount of like,
hundreds of different waypoints.
Yeah, just everywhere, all over
Yeah.
the place.
So I would say like just as a recommendation, like using the colors, it's like you can change those colors to use. It's like whatever it is. I mean, I think one buddy, it's like he marked like blue is in like the current year. It's like purple was the previous year. So you can see it's like okay, what sign is fresh? A scrape or a rub?
Yeah.
There's different ways you can use that. Then you can filter the content. But then if you have too much content, you can also use Google Maps. It's like to do an overlay. So you can say, okay, well, just because I'm seeing this on Onyx, I can go and look at it in a different view on Google Maps. You can then go ahead and look at terrain features because sometimes I don't want to look at satellite images. I only want to look at the topography of a certain area and kind of
especially
see.
when you're in the mountains.
Oh, especially.
Yeah.
When I get into big woods, I mean, topography is everything. It's like,
All right, just want to take a quick break and remind everybody that's listening, please, if you haven't, go on to iTunes or the podcast app, anywhere that you can leave a review on the podcast. iTunes and the Apple Podcast app are the best places to do so because it really helps in the rankings. Go in there, leave a written review, tap on the 5-star rating. It's going to help us a lot in shooting up the rankings and getting this podcast out to more people, and I would really greatly appreciate that. Go and subscribe on our YouTube page if you haven't yet. It's Hunt Suburbia, youtube.com/Hunt Suburbia. Of course, follow us on all of our social medias. Continue to interact with us, and if you have any questions or anything you want to send me, shoot me an email at huntsuburbia@gmail.com.
Big bucks I've been dreaming often, every night till I'm in a coffin. Vermont woods to the burbs of Boston, I'm looking for a tree to get lost in. Crisp mornings, little dust in the snow, quality time, just me and my bow. Fall evenings, I know just where to go for some quality times for me and my bow. it's just me and my bow.
This episode is brought to you by Heron Hill Winery, the official winery of the Hunt Suburbia podcast. Go to www.heronhill.com and use code HS5 for an additional 5% off at checkout. Now, they already have some great volume discounts on there. If you buy 3 bottles, you're going to get 5% off. If you buy 6 bottles, you get 10% off. If you buy 12, you're going to get 15% off. So if you add the 5% extra you get from using code HS5, you get 20% off plus free shipping for a case. HS5 is for first-time buyers. If you're a repeat buyer, you've supported in the past, just get on there and use those volume discounts. Get the wine delivered right to your door. Enjoy a nice glass of wine while you listen to this podcast. There's a lot of great information. And support us. Support the sponsors. We really appreciate it. HeronHill.com. Use code HS5 for an additional 5%, or just enjoy their volume discounts.